Okay. See what I mean? Okay.
Where's your birthday?
Here.
No. That stupid thing that you can't see it. See, they moved the tables over, so you can't see it.
I don't know if we have a. I do have a need for that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, my hair will wait till they start.
We can't hear you.
Do we not have lights tonight?
Right order yet.
Is there a need for it?
Yes.
We can't hear anybody.
Well, then I need to make a motion.
They don't want, well, you can't see it. They said no.
Well, then, is there, okay, what's the need for it?
You should make two.
You know what I mean? When you have it, that's all I ask.
I'm waiting on what, you're supposed to make a motion
I'm
for,
asking what the topic is.
personnel, let's see, personnel matters and update of pending litigation, collective bargaining matters, review executive board minutes, real estate, or employment and compensation as needed.
Because of this, I know.
All of the everyone.
Like this.
Okay, so if you want to make a motion, then second, you can go back.
Did you not say that you wanted to do it at the end of the agenda? Is that what I heard you
Yes.
say when you first said that? I do not agree with the one.
We can't hear you.
I'm not of you.
I'm
on the mic.
Okay.
Okay, I do not agree with going on executive session at the beginning of the meeting. I believe that Trustee Brewer said we need an executive session, but that we would like to go on at the end of the agenda, if that's what I understood. I do not approve of going in at the beginning.
Well, that has to be made, just the way that you do it, and that's not how it's done, and I said that.
Can't hear you.
So, that's why I said you can't do it in that kind of, just because you don't agree, if it wants to be, it has to be voted in the proper way, you have to suspend the rules. I said that that has to be done every time.
I'd like to make a motion to move the executive session to the end of, suspend the rules and move it to the end of the, meeting. It'll be, it doesn't have numbers on here.
That's all, that's what you have to do.
Yeah, but they generally have numbers,
Okay.
so I don't,
Hold
I
on,
need
just-
them till the end of the meeting. That's what we have.
Excuse me, okay, first of all, the meeting's up here. And if you want to make a motion, you have to make a motion to amend and suspend the rule first. You can't make a motion to, excuse me?
Didn't I just say that?
No.
Okay. I
You
made a
have to make a
motion.
motion, as I stated before, to suspend the rules to change the agenda. That's the first thing that has to be done. After that's been done, you have to make a motion to do what you want to do if you want to bring it to the end. Then that would be the second motion.
I was
That would be the second motion. The first motion is to suspend the rules.
Because of this stupid thing.
I make a motion to suspend the rules, to move the executive session. To
Please
suspend
use
the
the mic.
rules, period. Okay. I make a motion
Thank
to
you.
suspend the rules for executive session.
So, second.
Okay.
The correct way is suspend the rules to change the agenda. I know you don't want to hear this, but that's the proper way to do it. To amend the rules to change the agenda. The second thing would be to move the item you're talking about to the end. That would be the second motion. But the first motion is to
You must have
suspend the
those
rules
turned down so long.
to move to change the agenda. That's never this motion is on the floor. What does that mean, trustee?
That's right.
Every week I ask to have an executive
Okay.
session.
So you're not
put at
talking-
the end of the agenda.
Trustee.
You refuse to do it.
I didn't refuse to do anything.
You refuse.
No, I did not. Why do you, every time we have to go through this, you're not running nothing. Why do you have to do this? How come we can't just have a meeting?
I think you just
Like,
put it at the end of the
because
agenda.
I didn't do this. How come you didn't bring this up Friday when you got it? I'm not gonna recognize that motion since you want to act that way. No, I'm not. We can have executive session now. I'm not gonna sit
I
here.
make a motion to amend the rules to suspend and change the agenda to the end of the session.
Second.
I'll accept the motion to go into executive session. I don't think it should be that long. I'm not gonna, if we're not gonna do it right, I've said it 3 times, and that's not the way it is done. So if you feel that you don't wanna do that, then fine, trustee Williams. The only thing I'm saying is, I had nothing to do with that's not the proper motion. I said it twice. That's not the proper motion. So, as stated, I'm just like, if we want to go into the executive session, we can go into executive session now. I'll accept the motion to go into executive session because doing this each and every week,
There's an amendment, there's a first and a second on the floor.
that amendment, that motion that you had, we put on the floor is not a proper motion. I said it twice. That's not a proper motion.
Motion to amend, suspend, and amend the rules to read.
Good question.
Second.
I'm not accepting a motion that's not properly motioned. I keep saying that's not the proper way to suspend the rules, to change the agenda. That's not the proper way to do it. But, you know. So we could have been in the executive session by now and back out. It is ridiculous. You're absolutely right, trustee. It is. I'm still waiting on, as I stated before, I'm not accepting a motion that's not been properly stated. So, Five, I prefer we can go to a motion to recess to executive session. Nothing with that. That's not, shouldn't take that long. You made a motion to go to executive session. Is there a second to that? Motion's lost. Okay, first discussion, Director Rosie Williams Bay, Nancy McCartney, Library Road sign.
I submitted to the village clerk. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Mr. Mayor,
I submitted to the village clerk last week 4 pictures for their perusal. The library is currently working on a couple different projects to be able to bring the community together as well as let them know where we are. We hear a lot from our community partners about they don't know exactly where the library is located, they would love to come to the programs that they hear about, but they don't know where we are. We even had some board members and current employees that didn't know that we actually have the universal sign in the library, personally look, signs around one that's actually closest to our library is, if you notice, the section of 3 pictures on your page, it's right at Sauk Trail and Jeffrey. The reason why people don't see this sign is because it's blocked by the crosswalk sign. So what we're asking for today is to work with the village in contacting county and state to submit a letter for their approval to purchase new signs for the library. Typically, the signs that the libraries have now, these signs are 38 years old, so obviously they're being updated. But typically, nobody uses the green library sign anymore. And instead of the arrow, they actually have the address, so people could actually, when they see it, maybe Google it. And they also say, maybe if they have the arrow, it'll say like 5 miles. So people kind of know which direction they're going. We would like to add additional signs, replace these signs, and then add additional signs on 3 and 4, Swartz. And then also on the south side of the village, because that's where a lot of people, just because they're not over here on the north side, they don't know where the library is. So we would like to add signs over there, because there's currently not one there. There's one by 223rd, I'm told. Excuse me. But there's no more throughout the village. When I spoke with Kevin from Public Works, to kind of see how this was done before, how our street signs ordered, that sort of thing, he told me that it would be helpful if we had the village's support on a letter that we could send to county and to state to ask for these signs. And then once we had the permission, that historically what has happened is that the entity is responsible for purchasing them, and then Public Works has installed them throughout the village wherever they go. So we're asking for your support in this, and then additionally, we would like to work with Public Works to see maybe where the best parts of the village would be to actually put on village streets, not just Torrance and South Shore. Maybe some like by Brooklyn area, back by Gates, things like that, you know, like I said before, in parts of the village where a lot of people don't know exactly where we are. And then for the board's review again, you can kind of see the crosswalk sign is covered up our library sign, and the crosswalk sign is actually after the library sign. So really, the sign should be reversed if it would be effective at. And then just for the audience would like to see, this is kind of what we're running into as far as our library sign. The library sign is the grid sign, it's hidden by the crosswalk sign, and this is just in one area.
You said you need a letter from the village.
We would like to write a joint letter.
Okay.
That would be signed by our board president,
Okay.
and then
Okay.
we could submit to county and state.
Okay. And then purchasing of the signs, how do you want to?
The library is responsible for the purchase of the signs.
Okay.
We would just ask that Public Works install them.
And now they got 394 probably promised. We have to add that.
Right, and I reached out to IDOT and to Cook County and to state, but I haven't heard back as far as exactly what the letter means. I would like to bring a sample of the letter to you, but I didn't know exactly what the letter should specifically say, if there's specific wording or a specific way to request it. So I'm waiting to hear back from that. Our next board meeting will be March 12th. So that what I'm asking, I'm going to ask you guys now so that I can let my board know that this current board said yea or nay. And then after that point, we would draft a letter, submit it to you, Mr. Mayor, for signature, and then we can send it out.
Now, you said you don't want an arrow, you want an address, is that what you?
Yes.
You want that, well, will the sign have the library logo and then the address underneath, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, so the smaller sign that has the arrow,
Mm-hmm.
it would either have the address or like in this area where it's so close to a coastal library, it might have the arrow and the flag. The board hasn't decided exactly which sign it would be, but those would be the two options. We were thinking on the south side of the village, where they may not have any idea where the library is, it would be better to have the address, so that in today's day and age, everybody has smartphones, they can just Google it, and they can find it.
But I need to find out, maybe, talk to someone, about that, or find out. That would probably be,
Okay. Okay, if you have any contacts at the county or
That's
state
what we're
commission,
looking for, now, in the village, it should, you know, have a problem with that.
in village streets, we just need
Right.
the board, but for Torrance and Sauk Trail, we don't need, and I can't remember which one is county, which one is state. But one's county and one's state, Kevin couldn't remember which one was which either. But, county is Sauk Trail, so that means state is Torrance. So we would need basically 3 different letters, same letter, addressed to the 3 different entities, IDOT, county, and state, and then go from there with the signage. And then, once we get those, we would then come back and talk to Kevin about actual village streets. Where would be the best place to locate those as well? Because I don't think there's anything in Candlelight, Weatherstone, anything within our library district.
I mean, I was just probably with that. So if you need.
We can't hear you.
If you need, to work on the draft, we can do that.
Okay, then I will send an email out to my board tomorrow stating that the board gave their approval of this, and then I'll follow up with the mayor and the village clerk. And like I said, if anybody has any contacts, because I just did a quick Google search and tried to email. So if you have a direct line to anybody, obviously I think that would make things go quicker. We would appreciate anybody's assistance in that. Thank you very much.
Okay, I will say so. Thank you. Next item is the economic development proposal. I talked to those people, they're going to have to reschedule, they're not able to make it. So the next item will be a resolution amending the appointment of a local government director to the South Suburban Land Bank and Development. I hope everyone gets a chance to read it. It basically is Section 2 of the accords with the requirements of Section 5-01 of the International Intergovernmental Agreement. Mayor, with the consent of the village board, does hereby appoint the Director of Community Economic Development, Community Development, to serve as the local government director of the South Suburban Land Bank, and if the director of the community development is unavailable, the village administrator, mayor, or village trustee may serve in this role. Pardon? Yeah, that's fine. We'll have to correct that before we bring that up. But are there any questions on this appointment?
So you're gonna remove economic development?
Yes, it has to be.
All right.
Any other questions?
Is there, for the Director of Community Development, there's some extra duties for this particular position? Is because of the budget problems and stuff, is there additional funds for her or anything like that? Can't hear you, Burbies. I was asking this, since,
That might does work.
Say it does work?
That one does work.
Just vote, no, vote here. So simple.
Because of all the, can you hear this? It has some going on.
Yeah.
Hello?
Hello? Thank you.
Since we are assigning additional duties for this particular position, is there compensation for her? And, I mean, it should be, but, you know, I know within budget it couldn't be. So is she going to get additional compensation for this particular position?
That'll be up to the board. Yeah.
There's never been compensation for this person to be appointed to this position. This is just for someone that when the land bank meets, they go to meetings on behalf of the village. It's part of their duties, and there's no compensation, other than if they have to use their vehicle, they may need, mileage for their vehicle or whatever, but it's not an additional duty. It's within the, and it could be one of many different people. As you can see, it could be the community development director, the village administrator, the mayor, or a trustee. That's why there's no compensation.
Any other questions on this subject? Okay, we'll try to get it to you with the necessary corrections so we can put on the agenda for next week. Okay, the next item is the resolution authorizing and directing the submission of the application to the County of Cook, requesting the community development block grant funding for the program year. We're hoping, we're asking this time $400,000, and hoping that we can get it. In the past, they've done it every other year. That's probably why they give it $400,000, because usually $200,000, but all we can do is, that we will continue to keep doing is asking every year. You never know, but I don't see the problem with asking. It may happen. So this is just a standard. Every year we ask for money from our community CDBG for some of the roads that we need to fix in the village. We also add money to the from our MFT to compensate for what we're short on CDBG. But when we get the money from the CDBG, we can have a bigger project. We're still going to have projects that will be funded by MFT, but we're asking for this amount. Are there any questions regarding that? Okay, now I'm going to ask you to put this on the agenda. You can vote on next week. Okay, that's all I have. Next item is Director Finch. For forensic audit update, please give him a mic that works.
Thank you, Mayor and Board. You all have a copy of 3 proposals that I got for forensic audit. So in that proposal, it gives you the firm's particular experience and the fees that they charge. I think 2 out of the 3 are asking for an upfront retainer to get started. So you guys can review that and then decide which one you want to go to. Ideally, I prefer to go with Sickage because I think they are one of the most well-known and respected firms in state of Illinois, definitely throughout the U.S. So my recommendation would go to use Sickage just based on their experience. Also, when we get ready to embark on this forensic audit, please take into account that, as has been stated many times from the board and whatnot, that our finances of the village is somewhat in a debacle. And that's something that's going to have to be taken into consideration. As you all know, originally I was not in favor of a forensic audit, The reason I'm in favor of forensic audit now is that hopefully whatever is flushed out with the forensic audit, it can allow this board to move forward. During my time being here, about 8 to 10 months, or now a little bit longer, a lot of information has been centered around finances. I've asked you guys in the past to read the audit reports from the last several years, and if you've done that, you know that there's some underlying problems that have not been resolved from years past, which is one of the reasons I personally think we should at least start with 2016. One of the things that I am going to ask the board probably within the next couple of weeks is allow me to bring in an experienced person to help get these finances somewhat under control. Because what's happening is that this is just a cycle. Some of the people can only do what they're able to do. It's a mound of work that needs to be done. As I said before, government accounting is not simply 1 plus 1. It's more complicated than that. And a lot of your questions that you are asking, and rightfully so, is centered around the complex nature of doing government accounting. So if you all are very serious about getting a grasp of the finances, understanding what is and what is not right, there's a lot of policy, procedures, simple things, as I stated last week. Even though the purpose of a forensic audit is to find fraud or potential alleged fraud, as stated that that's not the intent of what this is going to be about. It's more about what needs to be done and what should be done as far as putting things in place. So we're going to have to really be willing to get a firm or a very strong individual to come in, grab their hand around this, all these finances, and really put Sauk Village under control, because it's not. And this is not something that I'm just saying, but it's from what I've read in the audit reports, what I've experienced over the last 8 to 10 months that I've been here. So as you consider this forensic audit, please understand in the next 3 months, as I've told the staff, we're about to go through a hurricane. You got the forensic audit, you got the audit from 2019 that has not been started, and we're about to embark on the FY21 appropriation. As we all know in experience, the last appropriation took quite a bit of time. So to have all those three going on at one time, with myself being here part-time, that's a heavy undertaking. So I'm gonna ask the board, the mayor, to spend some money, bring in a firm to assist with getting everything in place. Because once they do start the forensic audit, there's things that they're gonna ask for that I can tell you now, the staff not gonna be able to produce because there's stuff that doesn't exist. And all we're gonna end up doing is just spending money while they waiting on us to get information that's not in place. So if you have any questions, I'm willing to answer those questions.
Mr. Finch,
Yes.
it's my understanding that you're recommending that we do a forensic audit, okay, with one accounting firm. Then we have another person who does, like, I'll say day-to-day, just to keep it separate. We have a separate one. Okay. Now, according to what you said, looking at civics first, they said they want $17,500. That's the service they pay. But have you identified what pot of money we're going to use in order to pay for this forensic audit?
My understanding, we're going to get the forensic audit from the line of credit or reserves that we already have. The money that I want to use for an outside firm to come in and just focus on what needs to be done under my direction will come from things that I've identified months ago. Last week, I canceled Call One account. That in itself saves $3,000.
How much?
$3,000.
So, I mean, that money could be used for the accounting.
If I'm given 3 to 6 months to bring somebody in that knows what they're doing, the question that you guys are asking for, it will be more readily available. Like, for instance, I've asked a lot about the TIF in the accounting system. As you know, Trustee Brewer, just that one bank account for 1 month, it's like 40-some pages. So it takes somebody time to sit down and put that stuff manually into a computer system, which is the normal course of accounting work, but someone has to do it. And with the staff that we have right now, they're tied up with what their normal day-to-day functions are already. We getting a bid on the lights, by the way. It's already been out for request, so.
That's not on purpose.
Well, when can we get started, or when can this be available, like?
What's that?
I guess we vote on which one we want, and then we could start right away?
Yeah, I think we have a discussion on which one you guys prefer, why, look at their background, their experience, and then figure out which one of those three would be suited to come to Sauk Village and start the work.
Oh, so we could do both of them at the same time?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we need to do both at the same time, because there, like for instance, there's 30 bank accounts. There's all kinds of activities that goes within those bank accounts on a day-to-day basis. So someone needs to start grabbing all this stuff together. Like 30 bank account, the one with the state, those 3 accounts can be closed, but there's a process to close them, have the state redirect the money. So that's something that got to be stayed on top of. You can't just start it on Monday and then Tuesday the account's closed. It doesn't operate that simply.
So a question for you, so the outside help that you think, is there like a number of hours? Because now, if you remember a few months ago, we had somebody else assisting us.
Yes.
You know, when I think they were here, you know, I think, I forgot how many hours a week, but we look for something similar to that. They'll be here, you know, 20 hours a week or so, assisting, or we.
What I want to do, and I didn't make copies of it, so if you guys want a copy of it, sure. I want them to go through the audit finding from last year. And that's where they focus on. Like, for instance, segregation of duties is one of the things that's been consistent on the audit, which include bank recs, bank statement, payroll, monthly statements that you guys are asking for. All those things like that, that person we assigned to make sure that process is in place. So when we have a board meeting and the trustee says, well, I would like to get a monthly statement, the staff that's here now can go into the system and pull out that monthly statement. But to do that, we have to get that process in place. Like, what does that look like? For instance, it's February. By March 10th, are we closing our financial books? That's something, for me, it's simple, but that's something that has not been happening in the past. What typically has happened in the past, you have audit come in October, but then you're doing 6-7 months past of bank statements. That's too much for one person to do. So you end up wearing them out or you're making mistakes. So to answer your question, what I would like to do is give them the audit findings and say, this is what got to be addressed. Because what happens too, as these findings keep growing and getting longer and longer, it's impacting your overall credit ratings too. Because it shows that the village is not really addressing their financial needs. And some of it is a matter of policy and procedures.
So, I mean, I get the fact that we're trying to pretty much stay afloat and kind of keep up, but I worry, well, catch up, but I do worry about keeping up. So once that temporary help is gone, I worry about can we still maintain the staff that we have, getting the job done on a daily basis.
Because I'm not the financial director here to answer that question. Once they caught up, then that's the accountability that I spoke of 6 months ago. People have to change and be accountable. So once they're done, everybody, because this whole process is going to be everybody included. Once it's caught up, it's up to the staff to maintain it. So like I said, we do monthly closing at the 10th of each month. The staff know by the 10th of each month, this is a process you have to do. But to ask them to do that now, it's all over the place. So I think once the staff are put on a path of what's needs to be done and held accountable, they should be able to maintain it. It's just getting to that level, like cleaning a house.
Mr. Finch,
Yes.
you just stated that there's records that you're looking for that you can't find or that don't exist or whatever you just said.
There's policies, procedures that doesn't exist, that I know of. There's like,
Not statements, not banking information. It's there. You just can't find it or what?
depending on how far back you go, I just found out maybe a week ago that apparently there's a safe that might have financial information in there. But in my particular office, there's no statement going back to like 15, 14, 15. Let's say 14. So I know I got at least 16 in my office.
Mr. Finch, I see with Sickage,
Yes.
they want a $10,000 retainer. And I noticed that on the first one you gave us, they want $900 as a retainer, and then when that's used up, they want another $900. But the third one we have, they don't want a retainer.
No. But I think the third one, if you look at the third one, if I recall correctly, their per hourly rate is higher. I think it's $2.25 per hour.
Larry Brandon,
Yes.
that's if you have the managing director,
And
which would be 225, the manager's 175, and the staff is 125.
Mhm.
Now, I also noticed, on one of them, I think it's Sickich, they have it, that they have to be paid within 30 days. If it
Yes.
goes past 30 days, now we have a late payment.
Correct.
And they charge 1.5% per month.
Yes.
So, Mr. Finch, going back to what Trustee Bell just said, you said records do not exist.
Policy and procedure records do not exist.
Policy and procedure records. You don't mean actual financial documents.
Correct.
Okay, that concerns me. Second of all, I know I had spoke with you about how many years we were going to do, or
Yes.
what years we were going to start with. The fact that in 17, 18, and 18, and 19, we've had a lack of financial personnel, that concerns me. And I really think that we should focus on the last 2 years first, and then go back another 2 years. That's just my opinion, because of the fact that, like you said, the finances are in a debacle. Because there hasn't been anybody really in that position handling the finances, and those that were sporadic. So I don't know what the direction of the board is going to be, but assuming we were to do 17, 18, 18, 19, that's 2 years. In the conversation I had with you, you said that's approximately $100,000 per year.
If they go very detailed, yes.
Yes, okay. So say we're going to spend $200,000 on 2 years. I know you suggested going back to 16, whatever the desire of the board is. I'm suggesting 17, 18, and 18, 19. So I'm just talking off the top of the head. $200,000. So you're saying we could take the $200,000 either from the line of credit or from the reserves, and we could start with 17, 18. And while 17, 18 is being done, 18, 19's regular audit should be completed by the time the 17, 18 forensic audit is done. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so we could legitimately do the last 2 years, and then if we feel the need or we want to, we can go back 2 more years. Not the next budget, because this budget is almost over.
Correct.
And then we could budget for
Yes. Now,
the next 2 years.
the reason I was saying 16, 17 is because as they dig into this, you have to understand a lot of the issue that they're going to find is part of all past history. A lot of the process and procedures that is not done now is because it wasn't done historically in the past. And it's probably further than 16. I was saying 2016 because if you start at 16 and you do 16 and you do 17, by the time we get to 18, 19, we might not have to do 18 and 19 because all those underlying issues will be identified as this is what we got to do, which is why I want to bring a person in because, for instance, they're going to ask the question, why is a payroll person doing an HR function? Then all they're going to do is read the audit. And that's going to be something why the village never corrected that. And that has nothing to do with 16, 17, 18. It's just something that historically has always been done. So those things that I believe policies and procedures, structure, started way back from years ago. And it just, what point in time are we going to start to find out what we need to put in place so going forward, they already corrected.
I understand about the policy and procedure, but I think part of the reason why people were asking for a forensic audit was mostly because of the fraud that's been accused by a number of people, and the fact that people have said that money's been missing and money's been shifted. A lot of that happened during 18, 19. That's why I'm saying I think 17, 18, 18, 19, in my opinion, should be the focus. I mean, the board can choose to do whichever they choose, but that's where a lot of the conversation's been stemming from, the last 2 years. So that's why I wanted to make that clear, number one, the cost. And number two, could you tell me, I think you said we could start as early as March if the board decides soon. These companies are prepared to start as early as March?
Yes.
And a forensic audit could take 6 months to a year for 1 year? That's what we talked about?
Yes.
Okay, so what procedure are we going to use to decide as a board which firm we're going to go with and how soon we can get started? Have you figured that out?
No, I just think, like I said, for me, I like Sickage because I worked with them in the past, and I know they did some work at Country Club Hills. And I just feel they're very detailed, and they have a grasp of government accounting. Not saying these other two firms do not, because they're all CPAs, but I just know from my experience, Sickage is what I like. I do know they are always providing reports on a weekly basis if you need those reports. It's just a matter of what the board feel, based on their experience and looking to these firms, who can be the best one to get the job done.
It seems like the three of them have pretty much the same range as far as prices, depending on who in the firm is doing the work.
Yes.
So when it comes to Sickage, the partner is $350, the managing director is $250, the manager is $180. Who decides if we get the partner at $350 or the managing?
More than likely, even with the auditors, the regular auditors, the managers don't come out for initially.
Okay.
They're gonna come out and do an assessment and say, okay, these are the things we're gonna look for. These are the type of paperwork that we're gonna be asking the board, not the board, the departments to provide to us. These are the bank statements, these are the transaction, whatnot. So the manager will come out and give their staff a template to work with. So you're gonna have a manager or management partner somewhere involved in the process.
And it says here investigative services will not exceed $17,500. Is that what you're kind of like referring to, like the beginning, the investigative, like
Yes.
kind of give us an overview of what we're going to be looking at?
Yes.
At some point, we should get like a somewhat of a total, or this is what you're looking at, this is what it's going to cost. Okay, that's what the $17,500.
It's gonna be ideally like their scope of what they think they're gonna have to dig in and find out to give you guys, to give the board an answer. And based on that, this is what they're gonna start looking into.
So, Mr. Finch, I think that we should go back, for as far as we can. But it would be nice if you can put together, like a schedule and just make some assumptions and say, you know, for each three of these proposals, how many hours, and say, okay, this is how much the total will be if we choose to go with Sickage or Riva or whoever. And just so we can just see in black and white the numbers of how they will look. There might not be that much of a savings, but it's just good to see a comparison side by side. And also, let's not forget, I think it's also worthwhile, we probably can't do it right now or this fiscal year, but to just definitely look into the police pension fund as well. Something that, you know, we should definitely take a look at, and that has some issues. So just something to keep in mind for next time.
Is there any other questions? Okay. Okay, thank you, Mr. Finch. We will be contacting you in the near future.
Thank you, Mr. Finch.
Next item, village clerk, Ms. Margaret Campbell Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. About a month ago, I came to you asking a couple of things where the community center is concerned, and one of them was to ask if we could entertain including another charge, another fee for the use of the kitchen because of the resources that's being used when it's in operation. To that, you asked that I communicate with the senior center and look at their policy and bring to you their policy as well as my proposed policy. Well, the senior center says that they have bylaws and they're governed by their bylaws, so therefore it's not necessary that we look at what we're doing at the community center's policy at the same time as theirs. So rather than to get caught up in that, I went ahead and I updated a recommendation for the Pazel Center, the rental and reservations policy, and since I was doing that, I decided I would go ahead and do the Welch Veterans Memorial as well. And I'm glad that I did, because as soon as I took it off of the printer, a gentleman called wanting to book it coming up very soon. And did not make very many changes to the reservation policy. I took out language that referred to parks and recreations, at least I attempted to, and a lot of times it did not say parks and recreations 100% of the time, but it would just say PRC. So I took that type of information out. I cleaned up some of the language in it. Everything else basically is the same except for the use of the kitchen. So what I would ask of you is, hopefully you have reviewed it, know that the application, the contract application, I see that it's cut off at the bottom. By the time it's actually copied, everything will flow as it needs to flow. So that's one that I'm asking that you recommend. I'm recommending that you approve this so that we can move forward with the policy. The rental reservations and policies for the vote center, as I said, that is basically as is. I cleaned up some language again, especially that specific to parks and recreation. And with both contracts, I added for office use only, because what has been customary is there was just an empty space on the contract and people would just write in whatever they wanted to write in. And I thought that if we had a proper place for any and everything that was needed, that would be a little more professional and clear cut. So those are my recommendations for that. So if at all possible, I would like to ask that both of these be placed on the agenda for approval.
Are there any questions? No, that's not. Both of those work.
I just have a quick question. It would be on the community center. And it would be on the second page, well, it would be the third actually, where it says if it's necessary for village staff to complete the checklist, the lessee will be charged at the rate of $20 per hour for the time needed to complete the items on the checklist. The minimum charge for the village completion of the checklist is $20. So in it says if it's necessary. Is someone going, does it address that you're going to go over, not you per se, but whoever the village staff is to check that out? And we're going to charge them $20 an hour to go check it out?
I do go and check it.
Right, but you're asking for $20 an hour?
No, that was already there.
Because I don't think that people should be charged to check it out. The lessee. That's my personal opinion.
So you're saying that if someone rents the property, they do not complete the checklist, nor complete the details of the checklist, that they should not be charged?
Are you saying the lessee doesn't complete the checklist or the village staff? Because this says if it's necessary for village staff to complete the checklist.
Because, like a couple weeks ago, I'll give an example. A couple weeks ago, I went in after a renter, and I ended up taking pictures to show damage to the center. The same person was also accused of not cleaning the floors, not sweeping the floors, not cleaning the counters, and as a result, there were ants crawling all on top of it. And so, yes, we had to clean up after that. Now, I know that we typically will keep the deposit, which is $100. However, the condition that the center was left in that time would have been much more than $100. And know that the $100. If it's forfeited, it goes into, we have asked for a separate account line item for the community center, and all of those funds collected from this day forth will go for maintaining. And so, say for instance, somebody have an event on a Friday, and then someone turn around and have another event on Saturday or Sunday. In between that, it's going to need to clean. And especially when they've not taken due diligence in cleaning and completing the checklist as suggested. As I said, the $20, that piece was in the language already, so know that I'm not beholden to it. I am open to whatever your suggestions are.
Now, who do you have come in and clean it?
That's to be determined. Not on the
Not
weekend.
on weekends.
They come 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. That's what they're contracted. Exactly. So that's not, but, you know, I wouldn't ask the mayor to bring that to them until we had this discussion.
Yeah, they need compensation.
Sounds like a bigger security deposit.
Any other questions on the rental?
I have a question. I think it's on the third page. You indicated that
Of which one?
on the rental and reserve policy, reservation
Community
policy.
center?
What number?
On the third page,
Of the-
What number?
the last paragraph.
All organizations?
Okay, you indicating that all organizations have to get an insurance, proof of insurance, liability insurance?
I can remember, that was back in 2015, 2016, when this language was put into the policy. And the then trustees, you guys, they rather went round and around and around in terms of point number 12.
Which number?
It is number 12. That's just the second paragraph under point number 12. And this is what they finally came up with. This is not applicable to residents or just the general public. This is in case of an organization that has insurance and liability already. So all they would really be doing is showing us proof that they have this insurance.
Well, you know, it's been a while, but I do believe we had some kind of liability insurance that the village has to cover, you know, the different buildings and stuff. I'm not sure, I haven't been, you know, involved in it. So I think we're covered under there. I don't know how much, but we do have some kind of coverage.
Yes, we have coverage over every facility that's within the village. And I would think that that coverage entertains the actual facility and those people that are using it, that's our general public. However, with my limited experience, it is customary that when an organization book a facility, they must show proof of insurance to cover any of their incidences and what may happen or occur with them and their population that's there.
Now,
So, two questions. My first question is, so on the weekends, say there's an event on Friday or Saturday, are you going over, are you expected to go over there at that point in time when the event is over to check?
I go the next day.
So the next day, okay.
That is, if it's two events on one weekend. If not, say for instance, if there's an activity on Friday, or there's one on Saturday, or one on Sunday, I wait till Monday because no one else should have access. So however they have left the place, I would be able to see it.
Okay. And then my second question is, under the community center rental, I guess number 16, I guess how will we gauge, I see there's a different price based on the number of attendees. I mean, I don't know how we plan to do that unless we don't send a spy over there to count.
You know, that's really interesting because I think that so many people who usually rent, have rented in the past. And those that have not, sometimes sleep number 16. So the front part of the application is asking how many people they intend to have. And based on that, that's how I'm able to give them a count. And for a lot of times they call first and they ask about the monetary piece. So in gathering information from them to give them a quote, I ask. But do I go over there to check to see if it's 35 or fewer? No.
Right.
Am I going to?
No.
No.
Right.
So, you know, that you're dealing with honesty, an honesty system.
I mean, did you think about raising the security deposit? I mean, $100 don't really cover nothing.
As I said, the main thing that I did with this is to ask for a fee for the kitchen, which we didn't have anything at all. I didn't change any of the rental fees, the security deposit, or anything. But for instance, one damage that we incurred, where the wall, as you lead, that's leading into the community center, was totally busted. So right now, we only have it boarded up, but eventually we are going to have to actually have it repaired and repainted and all of that. So that's going to cost more.
Yeah, I think we should raise the security deposit. I mean, if it's a higher amount, maybe they'll take better pride in the building. I mean, $100 is low. I mean, if that don't even cover a light fixture if they bust that. I mean, I really think the security deposit should be higher. And then if the building's good, they get their money back. If not, you take pictures and then they don't get their money back if it's damaged. I think it needs to go up to at least $250.
They'll just go.
So I do think it should go up. I just worry about how much it should go up because what we don't want to do is deter people from renting and saying, okay, well, I can't afford a $500 security deposit, even though they're going to get it back. I don't want to deter anybody away because of our high security deposit. But should it go up, then I agree because if you do break, like a busted wall, okay, that's time, labor, material, so that is over $100. So I think we should just come up with an amount a fair amount of what it should be and not just get too crazy with it. But there should be a positive security deposit.
Maybe we should check with other municipalities to see what they charge for security deposits. I mean, that's just a suggestion.
Hold a copy of a credit card or something.
Well, we don't do that. Looking at the bookkeeping system that we have, it's very difficult to reimburse a deposit. So we take cash only for deposits. I respect what each of you say when you mention that maybe it should be increased. I also, though, would appeal to you to think about the use and the rental of the community center. It's a service that we provide to our residents, and I don't think that it should be a profit-making venture. However, I think that we should definitely cover costs.
Yes.
So I hear you when you say increase the security deposit. I mean, I'm open, what, 150, 200 at the most? This is usually refundable, and the majority of the people get there right real quick, fast, and hurry. They're right here.
Yeah, because it's probably going to cost a couple $100 for public works to fix the hole in the wall. For the hours of the guy being there and the material and stuff. I mean, they got to know that they can't tear this building.
So, I mean, what do you suggest? We can't necessarily go with what other communities do, because a lot of other communities do not necessarily rent out their community centers. They have park district facilities. And
something to call. And like you said, most of the times they get the money back, so we take care of it.
Clerk, Madam Clerk, just keep in mind that when we first started with the senior center, we developed some policy and procedures. And one of the things that we had a problem trying to figure out how much we should charge, because we wanted to mirror what's already in the community center. Now, if you go in there and give a community center some outrageous fee, you know, and then there's a small fee over here in the senior center, they're gonna find a way to get over to the senior center. You know, I'm just saying, this is what's been happening in the past. So my thing is to make sure that whenever you charge them the fees, that they, you know, are similar to, you know, each facility, so that, you know, they can be.
But it's the same.
I understand.
if the senior center is,
But
no, that's not what I was gonna say.
I'm not finished there. Okay, the senior center has been used, generally, it's supposed to be used for seniors, but you know that's not happening. Everybody rents it out, okay? So I'm just saying that, you know.
Just for clarification, everyone does not rent it out. The senior center does rent to a number of
Organizations.
adults also, but you have to be at least 21 to rent it. So if the function is for a child's birthday party, the senior center will not rent it. However, I'm going to say this. No, that's what I was told just last week. Okay? So I can only go with what I'm told, because what's in their policy is not necessarily always what's functioning at this point. Okay? But I was clear. I mean, they made it clear. They have bylaws. They have an advisory council. So, for the most part, they control the senior center. That's not my battle to fight. So now, if the trustees have a problem with that language, that's for you to take up. However, because they are reluctant to relook at their fees is not a reason that we do not. Because I really think that the justification that I provided is sufficient. I mean, the thing is, if it's not working, we can always say, this isn't working, let's go back. But these fees were from, what was that, 2015, 2016, something like that?
I know, Calvin.
Right. And so there's been no increase at all in all of that time. So that's significant. And as I said, I've not attempted to up any fees other than to add on one. But I will accept your recommendation to take up the security deposit, which they will get back.
I'm also reading here though, and you said there was significant damage. And it says, if the cost of repairing the damage to an item is greater than the deposit, the excess amount will be billed to the lessee.
That's what it says.
So, right. But this,
Baby steps. Let's just do baby steps.
I know, I mean, I'm reading this, so this is why we're going through it. The other question I have is about the key. And it's saying that they can't pick it up any earlier than the start time of the event. So is the person that's going to rent it know that they have to put down the time like an hour before they really want to get in there to decorate?
Yes.
But who changes the code for the key?
What's
Because it's a lot.
being proposed, and especially when we get the new lockbox. It's here already, it just hasn't been installed. We're looking at changing it monthly. And Kevin Weller and his staff will be assisting me with changing. Right now, we're looking at how do we rotate codes so that all of our youthful minds can remember them.
I understand, but I think my concern with the lockbox is that you give someone the code to get the key and you don't change it monthly. What's to say they don't go back and get the key?
That's why we're changing it monthly. Right now, they don't change it at all. It's not changed. It hasn't been changed.
I think it should be changed after an event.
After every event?
Yes. Because if you're gonna do it monthly, now, what's to say that somebody doesn't, they decide they want to use the community center, and they know the code to get in, and they take the key and go in?
Well, you know, what I would really like, and we're researching this, because years ago, it used to be at the police station. Now, the senior center says that's where their people get the key from, the police station. But that's how it used to be. But when I talked to the police chief, he's researching it for me because he maintains it. There is not anyone there 24 hours the way it used to be, so therefore they wouldn't be available to get and retrieve the key. So that's right, okay. So, you know, we're just researching out, but the current lockbox is absolutely horrendous. Take my word for it. Okay, so we look forward to a new lockbox or a new system, but the keys have not changed.
How much would that be monthly though? You said you changed it?
Oh, no, we can do that internally.
The reason I say that we should probably do it by rental is if somebody has a lockbox code for an entire month and they go in there in the middle of the night, 2 weeks after they rented it, we don't know who actually went in there and caused damage. I mean, somebody could just go in and do a lot of damage in a short amount of time. And I don't know how difficult it is to change the lockbox from rental to rental, but at least it identifies if there is damage, who caused the damage. Okay, that's just my point. I mean, a month is a long time. Even a weekend, I'm not saying if it's a weekend, nobody wants to go in on the weekend and change the lockbox, but for a week maybe. At least it's a shorter period of time where you can determine if there's damage. It had to be either this one or that one. That's one thing. And the second thing is, I never really did understand the difference between 35 and less and 36 or more. To me, it's like, why can't we just charge the same fee?
One reason is because of resources. If it's 35 or fewer, they're going to use fewer chairs and tables than if they're going to use 36 or more. I'm thinking that that's the reason.
Because we set it up.
No. But we make it available for them. And so the more the chairs say are available and or more the tables are available, the more use they get. So we have to take that into consideration too in terms of the replacement. So I'm only supposing.
Well, if that's the reason, it doesn't make sense to me. Because, like you said, we don't go there and count the heads, like how many people are there. So basically, if I was looking at this application, I would just say, oh, okay, well, I don't know how many people are going to be there, so I'll just go with the lesser amount. But I mean, there's not that much difference between 30 and 40. We could do 35, break it down the middle, and everybody pays the same thing. But that's just my question was, why was it like that?
I don't know why it was like that before. As I said, I didn't change it. However, I know why and how it makes sense now because we do not leave all of the tables out the way it once was. Now we have a special storage place for chairs and tables, and so renters will only have access to the number that corresponds with the attendees that they have expressed that they would have.
That makes more sense then. So if they say they have 35 or less, you're putting out 35, enough 35 people.
The lobby in the police department is still recorded, correct?
Say what?
The lobby in the police department is still recorded, right?
Oh, I have absolutely no idea.
So my question is this, instead of leaving the lockbox in the building, they come up, they push the little doorbell that we pay all that money for, in front of that building, and you get access by Calcom into the building, and you have a code for the lockbox, they take that key out and go let yourself in the building. It's not even take, get the key.
They don't take when they go to the lockbox.
Hmm?
They don't take when they touch the lockbox.
Oh, there.
No, at the police station.
That's what I'm saying. So
No, I'm saying they
the keys
don't
on the
take,
building.
when they take the key out, they don't take in. They don't take right there when they walk up, so.
So the keys are at the police department, for all the buildings.
The lockbox is at the police department, right outside the door. But there's a camera right there. So you walk up there and use the lockbox, you're on camera. So having it inside would make them just be redundant, but there's a camera right there.
You say you have to state your name or something in the building.
You have to do that to get in the building.
Right.
But the camera's right there. It shows that and everything in that area right there.
So, may I add this to the agenda?
Well, if there's, make sure that whatever necessary, do you want, okay. I'm sure I heard some corrections. Are there any corrections that need to be looked at
Corrections,
before?
suggestions.
Okay, are you gonna increase the rental fee before you add this, or that's the deposit fee? Are you gonna increase that? I mean, do you want that increased before and give them a chance to look at it again, or what do you? I'm asking the board at this point. Well, what is the board's pleasure for rental deposit?
I don't have a problem with that, I just think the security deposit.
That's what I'm talking about, the security deposit.
I mean, the hourly. fees.
Okay, well, what's the suggestion? Okay.
So, the only change that I'll make to this right now is to increase the security deposit to 200, but know that those people who have already booked with us, and I think it's about 3 of them, we will leave them where they are.
Yeah, they already got it.
Okay?
The language in it has to be changed. In 6, it says, to require if the central kitchen facility will be used. So we're charging them a flat $100 fee. Does that be saying, even if we use it or not, using the kitchen or not?
No, we don't charge them any kitchen fee if they're not using the kitchen.
In the kitchen, there is a fee for the kitchen.
To use the kitchen is a fee. If they're not using the kitchen, they don't even pay a deposit because the door is locked.
Yeah, sometimes they use those food doors.
So with the kitchen, it says here, kitchen deposit is $100, that's in addition to $100 for the rental.
That's how.
So if they use the kitchen, they're paying already an additional deposit. Then they get it all back when it's
So in this, so they get the $100 deposit still, but then
Upon use of the facility, they will only get $50 back. So that's how we would get the 50 for the use of the kitchen.
That's the difference between rental and security, right? I'm going to go back to number 3, with the $20 per hour to complete the items on the checklist. I've rented a lot of facilities, and I never had to pay anybody to do the checklist. It's just part of the process. I don't know whenever this got added in, but it says if it's necessary. And again, I think somebody already asked this question, how to determine if it's necessary. I think that a checklist should always be done prior to someone renting and after it's done. But I don't think the lessee should pay for it. And that's just my opinion.
So we will scratch that as number 2. On the deposit.
I think probably what happened in the past, maybe there was someone to walk through.
It should be.
No. To walk through with the renter after the event.
Oh, after.
That possibly could have been it, and that language just lingered. But I will take .2 out. Yes. And with the Welch, just leave it as is? Okay, I want to still just go back to,
How do you determine the electric? Here it's saying $10 for the first 2 hours, if they're using like the pavilion, or they use, I think there's electric also. How do they determine the electric? I'm just asking a question.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's always been.
Yeah, I mean, how would you determine how much electric was used?
Well, it's just, look at the thing, it's just a big electric, right?
And $5 for each additional hour? Yeah, we would pay. But I just found that kind of funny. No.
I don't know, it's always been like that.
And what's funny to me
I'll
here,
answer that question.
yeah, but,
But, no, but I understand what you're saying. You're talking about when they plug in?
yeah.
Okay, first of all, we used to have it on the key, lock and key. And sometimes I've been out there myself and saw that it was open. But it should be on the lock and key. You should be able to use it because even if you're not written it and you're using it anyway, you just plug it in. So, because not only that, it can be vandalized too. And I don't want that to happen. So, usually it's under lock and key now. And now if it's requested, then, you know, to have it out because they want to have a DJ or whatever the case may be. I mean, you do know there's, on the side of this wall here, there are receptacles, right, on the outside.
Oh, I know where.
So I'm just, you know, I'm just saying it's not like we can actually stop them and then also, you know, so it's just a courtesy. I mean, I'm just looking at, we're going through this whole thing. We're here to provide a service and get a nominal feedback for our expenses.
Right.
We're not trying to do on the business.
I just wondered how you monitored the electric.
Really,
I didn't realize it had a lock and
You
key.
really can't, I mean, if they think they can run a stitch for a minute of their house, God bless them.
They would.
Yeah, there's a lock and key for that box right there in front of the atrium, yes. Yeah.
so what you're saying as far as the gazebo and shelter is, it's $25 to rent it, unlimited hours? Just a flat fee?
I don't know about unlimited hours.
It doesn't say anything about per hour, it just says $25 for Sauk Village residents, $75 for non-residents, $100 for
They have to
businesses.
give some type of time frame. I mean, you're not gonna be out there at night, you know, and you're not gonna tie the park up, because what they're really doing is just tying up that atrium. I mean, the park is the park. So they're really tying it up now. I've seen people use it and they cook or whatever, have family reunions out there. That's their time. They have a specific time, 3 or 4 or 5 hours. Someone comes in, then you tell them that, you know, that we're renting this. You know, but they have it, yeah, you're right, all day. And that's
I mean, there's no, it doesn't say on the application, like, what hours will you be using it for, or there's a 5-hour limit or
Oh, yeah,
4-hour
I see
limit.
what you,
Yeah, I mean, it's vague, and that's why I was asking, like, I mean, I could see someone saying, well, I've rented the park for the whole day for $25, because I'm a resident, which I don't have a problem with that, because it's their park. But I just want to make sure that it's vague there. And second of all, as far as the electric is concerned, like you say, there's outlets on the building people can use. I think we should just take the electric out. I mean,
oh, you mean take it out of here?
yeah, it doesn't make any sense. We have no way of gauging, you know, and I say, like you said, we're performing, you know, a service. We're giving the residents their building and their park. So charging them for the electricity is.
And you're right, it says gazebo shelter use.
Yeah.
$25, but how long are they able to?
They used to have to, if they rented the park, they used to have to do a porta pot. Do they still have to do that? Or
Depends on who's renting and what. I mean, we don't provide, you know, a lot of people say, why don't you, that's how we know.
Because I know at times they would rent the seniors, the community center, use the bathroom.
Right, they would have to do that, yes, if they have to, yes. We're not gonna, you don't get the use of any facilities if you're in the park, no.
Gotcha.
So you could rent both. You could rent the community
Yes,
center
you can.
and the park,
Yeah.
so they have access to
Or
both.
if you want to bring 45.
Right.
45.
Right.
Porta pots.
So, am I taking the electricity out?
In my opinion.
Yeah.
And then maybe we should look into how long of a use will $25 or $50 give you? I mean, how many hours will you? Yeah,
Yeah, that's gotta be some kind of.
because in the summertime, that can cause confusion.
Right. I've got to park from 1 to 4.
Can I ask how often the park or the gazebo is rented, the shelter? You don't know?
I wouldn't know that.
Okay.
I would
Personally,
say what I've been able to see during the week, not on the weekends, but during the week, I would say since I've been in office, maybe 3 times a season.
personally, my opinion is let them have it. If nobody's really using it for any other reason. Now, in the event that there's 2 people that want it on the same day, like somebody wants it in the afternoon and somebody wants it at night, that's where we might have a problem. But there's no, if we're going to put times on there, then we have to put times on there. And if not, it's open.
Well, the reason why you just don't let them have it, you want some kind of accountability. If something comes up, tore up, or God forbid, they put their coals in the wrong spot. Now we got a fire. Let them know who started that. So, I mean, that's why, that's the only thing I can see if there's a positive, you're gonna use it for that reason. Well, it's out there. Okay, so, I don't think they're not gonna use it.
So if we're renting the gazebo and the shelter, it's a $50 deposit for both.
Yeah.
So that would be
Yeah.
$100.
A bill, if you're gonna,
Right.
if you're gonna tie it up. Now, those make sense because now what you're doing is you're actually tying up that shelter.
But it's a
Nobody-
deposit that's returnable at the end of the
Yes,
rental.
yes.
So the only thing that's still unclear is we're taking the electric out. The only
Yeah.
thing that's still unclear is, are we gonna have certain hours, like 4 or 5 hour rental
Right.
periods?
Right.
And they have to have it on the application what hours they'll be renting from.
Time from the two. On this back page, it's got, they requested time from the two. So if they use it for.
But are we saying that they can only have it certain times, is what I'm
Whatever they put on
saying?
the sheet, I mean.
We're saying, are we giving them a limit? Or are we giving them unlimited? I said unlimited window, but are we limiting their window?
You just wanna make sure, I mean, you don't want to, you need to put something, because when a person comes up there and they, I don't want somebody to tell them, well, you can't play in the park on swings or whatever, because we got the whole park. See, that could be a problem too. But that's what I'm saying.
These just for what, like for the whole time or just 1 hour? They need to be more clear. I mean, like, is it $25 for 6 hours? That's pretty cheap.
But that's for the gazebo and the shelter use, yes. Not the park. And basically, that's what you're renting out, is the gazebo and the shelter. That would be,
Know that
It's the other.
a person that is renting the community center, he rents the community center and this every week. So he was called that we were meeting tonight to discuss the shelter. And who was it? I don't know. I don't remember his name. It was just a call. But we have to get yes, so.
I don't know, something about the bathroom.
I mean, okay, you're gonna come up with, per hour, or you're gonna put a time limit on rental? I mean, I'm not in agreement in putting a
$25.
25, so much per hour in the park.
4 hours.
I'd rather have it a limit of X amount of hours for the rental, in other words, if it's $25, 4 hours.
They must have tables that ain't even covered.
You know, we could put a time limit on it, but we're not there on the weekends, and most of these parties happen on the weekends. It's a park, it's an outside facility. I mean, you know, I have my family there, I'm not gonna say, okay, we gotta stop now. I don't approve of putting a time limit on it. It's an outside park, it belongs to the residents anyway. I like the fact that it doesn't, but I brought it up because it didn't. And I didn't want anybody to say at some point that, you know, it needs to be
We
clarified.
weren't talking about the park, we were talking about this.
The shelter and the gazebo.
Yes.
Exactly,
I
in
mean,
the park.
If you put down that you're renting the shelter, it should be a time limit because somebody else may want to use it or, you know. if-
That's the only time I asked, that's why I asked the clerk, how many times has it been used to her knowledge?
Okay, but
If there's a
regardless, I mean, are you saying that let them be in the shelter as long as they want?
In my opinion.
It says dawn to dusk, so that means what?
So if they're renting it that day, no one else can come in. That's what you're saying, that if they rent, if they have their name for that day, they have that shelter or the gazebo that day.
Guess we don't have a sound system.
Yeah.
And you're
We
not.
got one mic we're sharing, I'm sorry, it's hard to get it back and forth. Here.
Oh, it's two mics, that mic should be one.
So how about we just do $25 for 4-hour increments? That way, it's usually 12 hours, dusk to dawn. That just makes sense. If they want to do the whole day, $75.
Which is still reasonable.
Yeah, which is not too
If
much.
that's what the board decides to do, I would just say one thing, I don't need $5. And the reason being, I mean, I don't know about your family, but when my family gets together, we like to, you want to set up, you want to clean up, and then you want to have a party. So if you have 5 hours, you know, your first hour and your last hour is set up and clean up, right? Which is what Trustee Todd was saying earlier. So we could have like an afternoon rental or early morning rental into the afternoon and an afternoon into the evening, break it up into 2. And that, like Madam Clerk said, it's not really being utilized that much. So we're kind of like talking about something that may or may not be a problem. If it becomes a problem, we bring it back.
So what about the part about the grills?
You
No?
know, that just comes with, you know, a house car, and there's a grill there. That's for the whole world.
So we don't include anything, I get it, but we're not including anything in the policy about that.
All those utilities to.
Well, see, it says it's prohibited, fires. You gotta light up the grill. The other thing is the alcoholic beverages. Okay, you're not allowed alcoholic beverages, but down here, a special use permit is available and may be issued with the approval of the mayor and the board of trustees for alcohol used for organizations.
That's organizations, we will usually then have that insurance that you're talking about. But individual families have programs out.
Oh, I agree. But I don't think there should be any alcohol again.
So that's the difference.
Okay. So I guess it looks like we're gonna need some more work on the Welsh Park and Veterans Memorial. So,
No, I thought that we decided to do 24 hours, and I think Trustee Williams said she would rather see 5 hours, but
We're taking electricity out.
and then we should be voting next week.
And I thank you so much for all of the input and your suggestions and feedback. Okay, let's move on.
Now I'm going to talk about procedural rules. We had this issue come up. We heard from our attorney in terms of what and how he thought it should be handled. And then now we're getting ready to review an ordinance. Now, the ordinance didn't come to us until today. But know that I put this stuff in your mailboxes last week, so I had intentions of enlightening you. We're going to start with this little card here. How many of you remember a card that looks like this? I just made a copy of it for you. You guys all received this copy, right? Who did you receive the copy from? No, the actual card. We got the card from Olson and Sturp when you went to your new trustee training. I'm going to draw your attention to 2 areas on that card. If you go down to 1, 2, 3, to the 5th one, it says at the top, to do this, if you want to suspend further consideration of something that is indefinitely, then you would motion to table. Okay? That's indefinitely. If you don't have a time period, whatever, then that's when you motion to table. No one is to interrupt during the table. It requires a second, and like Trustee Williams said a few weeks ago, it's not debatable. Okay? That's tabling. If you table something, if you put it on the table, and I'm going to show you this a little bit later, if it's on the table, you take it from the table. You have to take it from the table. You have to, in order to vote on it. Okay? Let's go on down 2 items lower. Postpone consideration to a certain date. That means if you want to postpone any motion to another date or even later into the meeting until after, say, you've heard someone give another report and that's going to give you more information and clarification for you to make a good decision, then that's when you would postpone consideration and you provide a certain date or time. And that says that you cannot interrupt, it requires a second, and it is debatable. Okay, so now I want you to look at this other sheet that I pulled together on procedural guidelines. Give her hers back. Under procedural guidelines, I did a search and I asked postponing versus tabling, okay? And this is the information that I got. The motion to lay on the table, it enables you to lay a pending question aside temporarily when something else of immediacy is required. There is no set time for taking the matter up again. Okay? Its consideration can be resumed at the will of a majority and in preference to a new question that may then be competing for consideration. So basically what that's saying is, I'll give you, let's go with classic examples. In December, this assembly tabled 2 sets of minutes. I shared with you the other day. You never came back to take it off the table, or to put it back on the table. You never motioned to put it back on the table. In order to put it back on the table, you would motion, I move that we put these back on the table and let's look at them for. But can you do it the same day? No. Why? Because those 2 sets of motions did not meet your approval. However, in one instance for certain, I have no idea what was wrong with them. So that means I would only be presenting the same minutes back to you for you then to say you don't appreciate them again. So tabling was not the right thing to do, though, in either one of those instances. If anything, you would have chose to postpone them. And then you would say you wanted to postpone them indefinitely so that you can get more information or whatever, okay? And then you can always bring it back. You can say, like in one instance, you said, until we have an opportunity to listen to the tape. You said that. But nobody came back and said when you had an opportunity to listen to the tape. So therefore, those minutes are just still dangling in this computer. But your attorney said to you last week that I was supposed to put on every agenda those minutes, which made absolutely no sense. They cannot go on every agenda if you know that we're not going to act on them or make a motion to approve them, to review them, or anything. So, I thought that I would just share this information with you, and as I said, that was before I knew it was going to go into an ordinance. I'm going to ask that you read through both of these documents for greater clarity within yourself, so that when it's time for you to make a determination and a decision, you will be able to make one that's very informed. Would you do that for me, please? Any questions on that before I move on, because there's another piece?
Yes. I believe what the attorney said was that the motion should have been brought back at the next agenda, which we would have then gotten the same minutes, like you said, for consideration. And at that time, we could have told you prior to the meeting what issues we had done. But now that you're bringing this to the table and telling us how you prefer it to be done, or how it should have been done, as long as we're all on the right understanding, then what I need to know is, how do we bring back the minutes that were not approved December 10th? So, are you saying that at the next board meeting, we have to ask to put them back on the table?
My suggestion for the December 10th meeting minutes, which are 2 of them, would be to go back to them because you have a copy of them. Let me know what's wrong with them. I will make the changes as appropriate or as needed, and then when I when I email you and say, I'm seeking agenda items, you can just simply say, put this on the agenda, and then you vote on it.
There's 2 minutes that were tabled, 2 sets of minutes. What I'm asking is, now that she's bringing it up this way, are we putting it back on the table? One of us has to ask her to lay it back on the table. And then we have the minutes, we had them December 10th packet. We can give whatever suggestions we or I or anybody else had at that time to her prior to when she makes the packet. So that's what we will do. And bring those 2 sets back to the table.
Okay, you're saying is that is that, okay, I know you're speaking, is that the consensus of the board? I mean, I know you can speak for them, what is that? So is that the consensus of the board to bring those meetings back, those minutes back? Yes. Okay, that's all I'm asking.
From what I understand, Mr. Mayor, what the clerk is saying is that we have to do it in a motion. So what I was saying is, one of the board members, regardless to who it is, she said when she asked for agenda items, one of us has to ask for it specifically to come back as a motion. Not the board, one of us, any of us, multiple of us, under anybody's direction.
Okay, moving on. Since we're dealing with procedural matters, this was in your packet also last week, so, you know, there's a saying, and I may be messing it up, it says, when you are forewarned, you can be forearmed. And I talked to you last week about OMA requirements and the need for you to take your OMA training, okay? Know that we have been FOIA'd, and since then, asking for your certifications. Please take your FOIA training online if you've not done so, and please give me the certificates as soon as possible. But I need to just draw your attention to one other procedural matter. And that is, talk to you about this also, and I'm not beating you up, so please don't think I am. But if you look on page 2, under general information, if you go down to the middle of the page, it says, what type of public body is covered under OMA? You see that it says states, counties, townships, cities, villages, blah, 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 all municipal corporations. Then the next paragraph, it says public bodies also include all committees, subcommittees, and subsidiary bodies of the public bodies. That means each of your committees is covered under OMA. You do well posting your your meetings. You do that within the 48 period of time. However, you must present minutes as well. We talked about this before, but I just still want you to actually see it in writing. Now, to be honest, I know when I was, a commissioner, I had questions on, should I be the one, since I was the chairperson, to take the OMA, or did each one of the people that was on the commission? I erred on the side of caution, and I asked all of the commissioners to take the OMA training as well. No one could conclusively tell me how that piece was supposed to be handled, so I'm going to ask that you just give it some consideration and do what you think is best. But I can't provide a definitive on that because I was never given one. However, that training for you guys, it has to be. Okay? Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That concludes mine. There's no action needed on this one.
Okay. The next item, trustee Renee Pearl.
Since we, to continue
You
our
better use the
discussion
microphone.
on, oh, I'm sorry. To continue our discussion on agenda items,
One more procedural thing that's down there it's on the agenda, talks about the annual meeting calendar. Each one of you must present a calendar for your committee for the entire year. Okay, I know we talked about that the other day too. However, information that I gave you, it has all of that information. We have to keep each other safe, and we have to limit the responses to FOIA requests as much as possible.
Okay. Trustee Brewer.
to continue on with agenda items, before you is an ordinance to amend Division 3 Rules of Procedure relating to what can be put on the agenda items. And if you look on page 2, it specifies the mayor, the village clerk, or any 2 or more trustees. Now, since there has been such controversy on who can and cannot put something on the agenda, it specifically says the mayor, the village clerk, or 2 or more trustees or more. So that's an ordinance that we should look at and approve. Does anybody have any discussion on it? I'll look to here. This is a
No, it's not existing. It's not.
This is, I don't, this is what I got from Olson Service. This is, yeah,
Has
it's amending Division 3, so it's not new.
this gone before the ordinance review committee?
Okay.
Harvey? Trustee?
What? I'm sorry, yes?
Has this gone before the ordinance review committee?
No.
Okay, so you need to go before them before you put it on the agenda to vote on.
Any ordinance come from Olson Service has to go through the ordinance review committee?
It should, yes.
Okay, well.
It should. I mean,
Well-
even though they're the lawyers, I mean, they make mistakes.
Well, still, the conversation is, and then I'll send it to you, and it should be ready for approval. for next week.
No, it won't be ready that quick.
Well, whenever, you do it. Oh, here. This is,
I have a meeting on Monday. I can add it to my agenda
okay.
to look at this. But one of the things I suggest is, what are you changing? You're just adding, did you add these 3 sections?
Yeah.
Because usually when we're gonna do an ordinance, what I like to see is either it's lined out
Yeah,
or it's in red, so
so you know different.
so you know exactly what we're doing. So, were you adding, or is the 3 things? I tried looking this up and I can't
I think
find
this
this.
is
Does this ordinance actually exist? Does this
So-
ordinance exist?
So I was gonna ask the same thing, so I think this is a brand new.
I think it is too.
Well, I think,
It's amending the ordinance is already, if I'm not mistaken, it's part of the ordinance already.
so I was gonna ask, so technically, should go before trustee Todd's committee first, and what if the committee says, no, we don't want this, then technically it should have went then to the lawyers.
It's not amending an ordinance, it's amending Division 3 of Article 2 of Chapter 2 of the Village Code. It's amending the code, it's not amending the ordinance. I just want to clarify that. So it's just adding additional language to a code that's already existing.
Correct, but it should have
What
went.
is that? What is that ordinance?
No, it's adding
Okay, what is that article?
administration.
Pardon me?
What it says here, reading the verbiage, an ordinance amending Division 3, which is rules of procedure, of Article 2, which is the village board, of Chapter 2, which is administration of the village code. So in the code book, under administration of the village board for rules of procedure, we're amending that. We're not amending an ordinance. So this ordinance will be an amendment to Division 3 of Article 2 of Chapter 2.
But is this section 2.85 agendas, are these, I think to trustee Todd's point, are these already there? To the brand new section that she's adding, so there should be, so these are additions that are not currently under this, so that's not an amendment, it's an addition. And so therefore, it should have trustee Todd's committee first to see if she agrees with that, and then the law.
No, absolutely, I agree it should go. I'm just explaining the difference between amending the ordinance and amending the code.
Right.
But that's exactly what it says. Division 3 of Article 2 of Chapter 2 of the Village Code is amended by adding Section 2-85 agendas as followed, and right below there, it says Section 2-85, and that's what we're adding to the code, not the ordinance. I just wanted to clarify the difference.
That's what I was saying.
Right, so,
No,
There is something that you're adding to Division 3. Rules and procedures, you're adding to that.
When the ordinance review committee gets it, they can, review the code. It'll be there for them to review and she'll.
Right.
What I'm thinking is, it must have been a reserved section. Section 2-85 that was reserved. And so when it's reserved and you're going to add something, you're adding this language.
Yes, okay.
All right, so there's nothing to look at to compare it because it was a reserved section, is what it is. So you're adding A, B, C.
Now the three.
Right.
Yeah,
A,
but-
B, and C.
but more importantly, can we be sure to follow the process of going to the committee first, then the attorneys?
Right, there's certain things, okay, that, whether it's penned by our attorney or whatever attorney, some ordinances won't come before us because it's something you vote on every year.
Right.
But this affects,
Correct.
like
The corporate
your code, correct. It should always come before us. Like the meeting I'm having on Monday is, I haven't sent it off to the attorneys because the committee needs to meet, okay, how does this language need to read? Then I'll send it to the attorneys and then present it to you. This says added, because you have to really read through it that it was added. So it was reserved, it was a reserved section. But what I like to see, what I'd like to present is that it's either in red so you know what I'm changing or what we're changing, or it's lined out. But in this case, it was a reserve and it's an add-on.
Right.
But it really should come before the committee, so.
So if your meeting is, I think you said next.
On Monday, I was supposed to have it yesterday. I found out that I couldn't because the village hall was closed and whatever the deal, but I'm doing it on Monday, so I will add this to the other ordinances that we're going to be reviewing.
And the question I have is, is that going to be the norm, that we just go to the lawyers and have them do an amendment without asking, or amend an ordinance? I mean, I wasn't aware that the lawyers even did something like this. Did the board, in other words, are we going to just, each trustee or whatever, go and say, okay, I want to have this ordinance or this resolution written, and then we present it to the board or whatever? I thought maybe we'd have a discussion first that you want to do this, and then go to the lawyers and have them pen it or put it in writing. That's my question. That's the question that I have. How is it? I mean, you asked them to amend and add this to it. Was there a discussion about it, or was it just something that you felt that needed to be done?
There's something that needed to be done, and this is also in reference to what happened last week or so, when we had discussion, and there's been an ongoing discussion about who could put what on the agenda. There has been so much confusion about what can and cannot be done, and this particular, is that ordinance, addresses that issue.
So I guess any trustee that feels something is not whatever, they just go to the lawyers, have them to write this ordinance up, or write an ordinance or an amendment to an ordinance, and then bring it back, because these particular things that are given to the lawyers, they charge for that. So I just want to let you know that, you know, this was nice that they did this, but believe me, when you see the bills, it's going to be on there. So I just wonder, what procedures are you using? Are you just saying, I want to see X, Y, and Z, and can the lawyers make an amendment to this or add this language to it or whatever, without even going before the board and say, okay, this is what I would like to do. If the board agrees with it, or I just do it, bring it back to the board, and then we vote on it. Because that's the way this seems like. That's all I was asking. You just answered the question, so that's it. All right. Is that all we have for this? So this will go to the ordinance review committee, and then when they get through with it, they'll present it back to the board. Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. The next item.
That's for the TI. That expand. You see it, Mom?
The next item is the village administrator, Mr. Wade. Mr. Mike, are you going to stand up there? Yeah. The mic is they're back here.
Hello? Okay, it's on. All right. Good evening, corporate authorities. I'm just here before you to revisit some items that was brought before you. And it's also an effort to close out. If we're not going to proceed, I can let these vendors know we're not going to proceed, and just so they can stop bugging me as well. But with that said, I presented to you all before about talking about how our data is fragmented. We have multiple systems in which data is all housed everywhere. With that said, that is a problem, and I presented a solution. And in that solution I had OpenGov come up here and give a demonstration. You had your multiple questions that you asked. However, we left from there without understanding if we're going to proceed or not. So I'm here before the board or the corporate authorities as a whole to decide are we going to move forward or not. If we're not, then I'll give them notification that at this time it's not a good time, and maybe we'll revisit something else later on. So if you want me to go over some of the prices with that again, I don't have a problem. If you want me to email this again to you all, pitch that, that's fine. I think we were looking at the lowest amount just to kind of start it off, because I think one of the questions was, is it a suite or a system that we could keep building on? And that was the agreement that we could keep building on it as we start adding on it. For me personally, what I ideally believe that we need is at bare minimum our management reporting, our transparency, and then from there we can transition into a budget builder, and this be something that allows us to have the access that we need as well as to have all the data centralized so that we can make more sound, intelligent decisions around data. And with that said, that's all I have to say about Open Gov. So, no questions.
For this particular one, my opinion is that, in my opinion, I think we should wait. The reason why I say that is because, again, our finances are, months behind. And to me, it's good, it's nice, it's cute to see the pictures and the visuals, but it's old data. So therefore, if your data's not up to date, then therefore, it's kind of like, what's the point? So I feel like if we do have up-to-date data, then absolutely we can revisit, and then we can use that. And that was kind of my question to Mr. Finch earlier about how do we keep the staff up to date with our financial information. So therefore, if we are up to date, this is great, because now I'm looking at data from last April or May or whatever, and that certainly no purpose really. That's just my opinion.
And that's a valid point. Obviously, as I was having a good conversation with Mr. Finch in the hallway, our data, but part of that is also when we talk about data, we have financial data, we have data from our code enforcement, from our police department, from our licenses. So there's data all over the place, and the reason I was saying that it's fragmented is the more that we can have it centralized, the more we can have those questions around, what's the holistic picture. I think Mr. Finch presented it based on our fiscal house, and which is valid, absolutely. But that's not the only data that's out there floating around here. So as we start piecemealing this, we have bits and pieces. So if I talk about how much money is flowing out there in revenue because of our ticketing system, that's a whole nother data system, and to be able to have this more comprehensive, then we can determine, and also plan around it as well. That's the other part is we start talking about strategic planning, capital improvement, workforce development, all this ties into looking at the holistic picture, and the more we can centralize our data, that will be ideal. Nevertheless, I do hear your point, and I think the other thing with why I was appreciative about with this software particularly is that we can have it, that it pulls from the different systems that are out here, and therefore the original system is not compromised with people going in or compromising or changing the data, as opposed to it comes here and centralize it, and then we can control user access, and then it also leaves a digital footprint. So if someone did want to tamper with the data, it's still a digital footprint that you can't erase. So that's part of it. But nevertheless, I'm just here to present it again. If you all want to move forward, if you want to table it, is what it is. But I'm just ready to tell the vendor where we're going to go with this.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Well, if we were looking at option one, it would be $10,000.
To start up,
Yes.
and the annual cost?
Well, the annual is about 10, but we can stretch it over across multiple payment streams. So we don't have to do it like all at one time. That's the other thing. They're willing to work with us if we say, okay. So when I presented it to you, I already talked with the finance department to see how much money we had to use if possible. So it was sitting in the $15,000 range in which we can find available to use. So it's like $1,000, like $3,700 or $3,775 one-time initial setup fee, and then the annual fee is like, I just run it up to $10,000. So we're looking at maybe 13 or 14 initially. However, that could be spread among multiple payments.
You're saying it's 14,000, approximately 14,000 for the startup?
That includes the startup.
How much is the annual?
The annual will be, if we go with the basic rate, that'd be, I'm rounding it up to 10,000. Yes, a year. Are there any more questions that really to open go? Oh.
How soon can this start? How can this soon, I know we don't have money this year, so, could we, something we revisit next year and put in next year's budget?
It's up to your corporate authority to make that decision, because if you all say yes, then I'll talk to them, well, actually text me earlier, but if we say no, then I'm just let them know we'll revisit it probably new fiscal year.
If I recall, we said we were going to explore other companies.
Not for this.
Not for that?
No.
Okay. So I agree. I think we should wait till the next fiscal year, because we've got a lot that we're getting ready to face. Mr. Finch already said that the financial debacle that we're about to face is gonna have everybody, we're gonna be overwhelmed. I'm not ready to start anything new right now until that's on the way. That's me personally.
And that's fair, and I, once again, at the will of the corporate authorities, what you decide, nevertheless, I think when we start talking about what contributes to the challenges here, part of it is your data fragmentation. You just can't get around it. However, but if this is something you all want to table, it's your call. It was a problem, I presented a solution, and I move forward from there. Any more questions on that? Is that the will of the body that we table it?
I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just want to say,
Oh, I would let you on.
you know, this is a great idea, but right now, since we have we're gonna face so many challenges coming up soon, that this should be tabled, and this is one of the items that we should review first, because we need to centralize our data, you know, because we can't get data from somewhere, anywhere. But this should be one of our priorities for the year, the new year. But right now, I don't see us doing anything other than find out what's going on with our finances.
That's fine. That's your decision of the will of the body. My goal is just to close this out with this vendor management, to tell them that we're not moving forward. The second piece I was going to bring up is related to the website. Once again, I came to you all at the early stages of my interaction with the villages that the website needs to be redone. So, and this is just go off to Trustee Williams' point about you asked for other vendors. I did request a couple of quotes, but the reality is that why request quotes if we don't know what the budget that we're going to work within? Because part of the question of quotes is you define what you want to get done. And if I don't know if we, one, are going to do it, or two, if we know what kind of budget we're going to work with, it's all moot. So I'm here before you, one, asking the question, are we going to move forward with the website? And if so, what is a true budget number that we're working within? Oh, here.
Thank you. When it comes to the website, I'm not in favor of spending any money to redesign the website at this point, because just like we spent the money to redesign the website last time, and it never got redesigned, all they promised to do was to move the old data into the new website design. The data is old on the website. So until we update the data, I'm not in favor of updating the site. So we got 2 years worth of outdated data. So until we correct that, I'm not in favor of moving forward with the new site.
So I hear your point, and that's valid. The content is critically important for any website, but the other problem that I think is missed in here is when we talk about, one, you're referencing an existing contract that you entered into. The fall down with that was the fact that we internally did not do our part and provide the content and work with that. So that's part, right, that's off the table, because that wouldn't occur again. The second part of it, when we talk about the website needs to be updated. The web design is dated, the capabilities are dated, and then also the vision that I have, and I think even some of the individuals that was involved in the discussion of this, is much greater than what it is. It provides a more robust access to data, robust access to updated content, and also other portals to be able to engage our citizens and residents and businesses around things. In addition to that, the other thing about what this website is not capable of doing is also having a back end that gives access to the corporate authorities as a whole and other department heads to do what they need to do. So when we talk about a website, we need to really think of it not in the context of just content, which is critically important, so I'm not minimizing that, but more about what are we trying to give. This website is not really mobile ready, the responsiveness time is stagnant. Look, we could go a whole litany of things, but for purposes of here, my goal is, once again, because I have vendors that are asking me, how do we want to proceed, is either we're going to move forward now, or if we're not, we're closing that out with those vendors. So that's all I'm going to know.
And to my point again, like I said, I agree, the website's outdated, the website needs to be updated in the format, but what I did was I said, I already listed several things that need to be updated before we can move it over to a new site. So I totally agree the new site is necessary. But how soon can we get the updates on the current site so that we can move forward with updating the actual?
Well, that's a different discussion I'll take on with Mr. Gerald. So is that the corporate authorities again saying that they don't want to proceed with the new website and we don't have a budget allocated to that? Then if that's the case, then I'm just going to close out that contact with those vendors too. No.
No,
No, I think that point is fair. I think that, however, next budget, we should allocate some money towards a new website. But I think we should do that after we show good faith that we can update the website, like Trustee Williams said. So whatever Gerald or IT consultant can do to, speed on that process, yeah, I'm sure that we'll be more than willing to have that money set aside for the new website for the next fiscal year. We do have, 4 months to go, so hopefully that we can, actually, 2 months to go, sorry. So that way we can actually get some updates.
Okay, so I'll tell the vendors that we're not proceeding right there with that. The last part I was going to bring up is print communication. And this goes once again to talking about when we look at our communication tools, and that's kind of what I was laying out here when I think of website, print, and everything. Are we going to allocate money to a quarterly newsletter or something like that? It's a couple ways we could do that. But even with the print, let me be very clear. I'm not talking about how you used to do it, in which you would print it out and mail it to every resident. We clearly cannot afford that. Plus, with technology, we can do it other ways. We can have a PDF, we can have it housed on our website, we can print out a few copies and have it available. However, there's still going to be money that's needed as it relates to layout and making sure some of the things that are customization around, making sure aesthetics and content fit in there. So, are we going to allocate money to that? And if so, I just wanted them out. If not, then that'll be another discussion we'll table for later.
Definitely, that's also needed. Who would take on the responsibility of formatting?
Well, that's why I asked for money being allocated, because if I need an outside vendor to make sure the layout is done properly, then that's what I would do. The content for it would come from the multiple department heads, corporate authorities, even I would like some citizens to have some input in it as well. And I was thinking about something, probably if we did it more electronically, we could probably maybe do it every other month or quarterly. Definitely not monthly, because just to kind of pull it together. But the real question is, if we have money allocated, I would find someone who can, for a few dollars, be able to make sure our layout and aesthetically everything is in place.
I personally think that we need to move forward with some type of newsletter for the residents to know the committees that are going on, the resources that are available, meeting dates and such like that. As far as how much money it costs, you have to bring us some quotes from someone that could provide that service. But I think a quarterly basis, sometimes we don't even really know from quarter to quarter what's happening in the next quarter, but we just have to be better about getting our information compiled ahead of time. But I would say quarterly newsletters probably. We used to do it bi-monthly, but quarterly might be doable.
So I do have a question, I guess this is for the mayor. So I think we did have 2 or 3 Sauk talks that since your administration, I think, right? I think one. Well, who did that one? Who put that one together?
Can't hear.
I think he was put together in-house, so I don't have a person that, I think everything was compiled, it was just sent out, just one. We did it in-house, yeah. But I mean, you have to designate someone that's compiled everything. You have to get reports from each and every department head. They have to, follow up. It's not an easy process, and then you have to keep monitoring that. I thought we were going to, hopefully, if we get this every monthly billing, we can get a sheet, and we can use that as a means of communication, because now we have an actual piece of paper that's going to be mailed, and we can advertise, we can give updates and everything like that on that particular piece of paper that's going to be sent out every month. So therefore, we wouldn't have a need to a lot of other things. But still, even with that, you still got to have a person that's going to do the compiling.
Do you know where we are with that?
I have an update here, please.
No, well, that's what I'm saying. I know we're talking about doing that, and that would be a great means of communication. You can add certain things in there, and that goes out every month. You just have to actually activate it, because
Yes, I remember.
oh,
There was after you guys signed you did a resolution as well as an ordinance. You did the ordinance, I believe, to switch how you will be doing the billing, and then you did a resolution to go with the particular company. After you did that, it was determined that civics did not necessarily play well with Excel, the Excel format, and so they were working on making the two systems compatible. So that's what's the hold up.
well, then we should find out. We can find out this week where it's at, and then what do we have to do to make that actually make it work. Not make it work, but implement it.
And that's fine. But to the centralized budget, I asked
For the, print litigation. No, that's what he has on there. Okay, but anyway, but you're saying, are you asking to move forward with,
Yes, now are you all saying that you want me to come back with proposals about an amount? I just need a threshold, because the whole thing about is negotiation for what we can do.
if you're going to, I don't see a reason, I would think if you're gonna go to a monthly billing, let's find out how much information we can put on that sheet or whatever. Let's do with that, because that's actually happening, and
Okay.
we don't have to enter into a contract right now with anybody else until we see what we can do with this. This right here may allow us to put a lot of communication. They may give us 2 or 3 sheets, I know, and then, hopefully we can get somebody to help, defray the cost by them advertising.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you very much. I appreciate this opportunity to present to the court authorities. Thank you.
I didn't get a chance to try that. But we always did have the Sauk Talk, which was a bi-monthly newsletter, which we did in-house, which was at little or no cost. So, if you find out that we can't move forward with the water billing soon, I still think that we need to start something in-house as soon as possible.
Well, I'm going to be very candid with you. I don't know anybody in-house who's going to be able to take that on.
I've done it for 8 years.
I said in-house. I don't want to put it on the corporate authorities. But with that said, once again, thank you all very much, and I'll follow up with how much we can put on the water billing. We were talking about something that earlier in our staff meeting about that.
And
So
then we can, first of all, implement it, find out what we have to do, send out whatever we have to send out, find out what we have to do, and then implement it, and then go from there. And then, because you're talking about, as you said before, your staff meeting, you're talking about code red. That could be also some other venues. Okay, I understand. But those are some things that need to be looked at as far as before we implement and go into other contracts. I don't think we need to do a contract.
All 3 of your ideas are good. We need to do something with them. All 3 of the areas need attention.
Yeah, they do.
They really do. So we don't want you to just say you're done with it.
no, I just want to close out the contract. These vendors, because they keep asking me, and I don't want to keep let them a hold, in good faith, let them know where we are. That's all. Okay, thank you all.
So the program is going to continue, and you had the staff meeting, and you talked to the staff about the program?
Absolutely.
So we're going to move forward with that?
Yeah, I talked to the clerk last week. We're going to develop an implementation plan, and I put it on the agenda I had a candid discussion with our staff saying that, look, part of us, we need to be able to make sure we provide the content that's being communicated, and in addition, we're going to do a better job of our rollout, and that's a collective endeavor of how to get people engaged. We kind of came up with a couple of creative ways to get people involved in the system. So, yes, we're moving.
All right, thank you, sir. Next item is public comment. All questions, comments must be directed to the mayor. Each speaker may comment on any matter pertaining to the business of Sauk Village. Each speaker is allowed 1 opportunity to speak for up to 3 minutes and may not engage in debate, honor, this last result. I'll answer all questions at the end of the comment session. Please state your name when you come up.
Bernadine Hopkins. Basically, excuse me, I'd like to know, have there been any serious considerations for placing sidewalks on the Sauk Trail sidewalk, you know, where Walgreens and Family Dollar are? Because I'm noticing quite a few people are walking in the street because you can't pull a cart, you can't push a stroller or anything like that because that area is like slush, it's mud. So you've got cars coming this way and people walking that way. And so I'm hoping somewhere, somehow, someone's considering that before a serious tragedy occurs. The other thing is, are there any type of committees involved in creating some type of plan to encourage occupancy of the many vacant homes that we have? Are there anybody pulling any ideas to suggest something that would attract people? Because what I'm seeing, excuse me, is that these homes, and some of them were nice, they're just sitting and decaying. That's all. It's not generating anything. It's definitely not helping anything. So, like I said, I'd like to know if there are any committees that are presently considering some ways to encourage people to come in and utilize these homes before they become something that you've got to tear down and simply destroy. They were once nice. Thank you.
John Hinkle. Still like to bring up something on executive sessions. I know I can't ask for raise of hands of people that love to sit out here for an hour, hour and a half waiting for you guys to be done with that, but I know you can do that at the end of the thing when you answer my question here. I just don't understand why we have to sit out here hour, half hour, hour and a half for stuff that don't really pertain to us. I mean, it pertains to us, but not that it has to do with the meeting at the time. I mean, if there's something that's got to be answered on that day, then yeah. But you could have the meeting still if you have the meeting at the end, then you have to ask for an executive session to go before the meeting. And that's something that you're going to come back and answer to us why you went there. Give us a break. I mean, give us a little consideration. But I would sure love to see you to just ask all those in favor of having the meeting before, raise their hand. Maybe I'm just the only one. But I think it's inconsiderate that we have to sit out there. Well, there was something else that I forgot about. Old age, I guess. 1 minute? Okay, I'm done.
When I say 1 minute, that means you have.
Well, I know I got 3 minutes. You just want me, I'm done. Thank you.
Judy Guest here. I want to make a comment on Mr. Williams' topics. And I don't understand why we're going with paying somebody for a new website. I think we've heard at least 50 times one person offering to do the job for nothing, who has experience in doing the job for nothing. But I feel that because, again, there's a personal issue going on here, that she is not being considered. And I think it's about time to put the personal issues away and let's take care of Sauk Village and the residents. And I think we should consider using her for the website and not spending the money we supposedly don't have. I would like to know what the protocol is when a person moves out of Sauk Village. Is the water shut off? Do they notify the village that they're leaving? What's set up for them? And I'm asking because today, there was a home where water was gushing out of the garage, and the residents called the police. They went over there, and they did have dispatch contact whoever's living in the home. The lady responded that she no longer lives there, that the bank now owns the home. So they had to go through the process of getting a hold of Mr. Weller to get the water shut off. And then they discovered that apparently people were in there, living in there, and so they had to call for a board up. Now there's a lot going on with this that technically didn't need to happen if things are set up accordingly. But here's another person that's moved out and the bank owns the home, and so we have another home empty, being used by squatters and water running out of the garage. So who's paying that water bill? That's it.
Linda Washington. First of all, I just want to say I came to talk about something totally different tonight, but this meeting is amazing. That's the only word I can think of. Very interesting. And I just want to say that hearing all of the dialogue tonight, I just really feel that empathy for the clerk that have to take out her part-time job to go over and rent the community center and clean up behind people who have used the community center. I have heard in meetings the clerk say she called other municipalities to see if they had someone to assist them and be an assistant to the clerk, because she has so much work to do that she needs somebody to assist her. And the board at that time had a problem with paying someone to assist her with minutes. All of the minutes have not been approved back from the last set of trustees. So to know that now, since there is no trustee that's been assigned the Parks and Recs, which is a big part of the community that needs a trustee to oversee that program, since Calvin Jones left, that a clerk, that's a part-time job, but all of these issues with minutes and everything else, a part of her job now is to go over and rent the community center, see, make sure the paperwork is filled out, go over the cleanup. It's just amazing. But I really came to talk about what is the procedure for getting street signs put throughout the village. There are so many cars that speed through this village on various streets. Back in the day, when it wasn't as populated, maybe it was okay, but especially in the Carolinas, when you come where the restaurant is on Cornell and go to the end of that street on Cornell and you make that right on the frontage road, those cars is 2 lanes. They come around that curve so fast. It's just a wonder that somebody hasn't had a head-on collision. So I want to know, what does it take to get yield signs in different places? Because we have different residents that have various spots where they want a stop sign put to stop. And when you come around the other side of that frontage road, those cars come around that cul-de-sac so fast. It's just amazing that nobody's had a head-on collision. So I guess basically that's all I want to know tonight. And it's amazing what you guys are doing.
I'd like to touch on that, Ed Schenker. I'd like to touch on the idea of Linda Washington there about the idea of putting signs up. That's pretty much a waste of time and money. We've got a speed limit sign that says 20 miles an hour. Is that a suggestion? You know, just suggest you do 20? We need somebody to enforce the law. to make these people understand it's 20 miles an hour, not 35, 40, whatever you feel. Not that it's just an estimate. The stop sign, maybe I will, maybe I won't. We can afford to employ a policeman and pay his wages. Pick a stop sign in town. He can sit there and write tickets and make his wage with no problem. We have that speed machine that I've asked about throughout time. It helps. It helps them slow down. After a week or so, they say, I'll forget that machine, and they go on about their merry way. But we still need to get that machine out here. Let that machine do something of its own. We bought it, we paid for it, let's use it. I'd like to touch on the fact that I'm waiting on the village to give me an idea when they want to address my situation I have in my house. I've got damage done by the village. I can't do anything about it. I'm tired of fighting with it. It's time the village owned up to what they did. That's with the sewage, the back feed and so on, along with the idea that the village trees. That tree out there has fell 3 times. Twice it has hit my vehicles and done severe damage in my privately owned driveway. It's a public tree. I'm tired of paying for this maintenance that I gotta do on my vehicles when your trees are doing it. And then you tell me I need a vehicle sticker to park on my privately owned driveway. We gotta find out what's going on with this. It's a safety issue. Those trees can fall down and hurt anybody anywhere. They've done it. Let's get after it. There's no reason to sit back on the trees. We need something done, not sit here and talk about it. Another thing issues. I talked to the people on the hall when they left about they couldn't hear people talking up here because there's no microphone. You got passenger.
1 minute.
And if you stay up there where we elected you to be at, it's up there. You'd have your books, you'd have your microphone, you'd have everything that you need up there. We can hear what you want because we're here to hear what you're saying. And if we can't hear you what you're saying, we don't need to be here. You don't need to be here. We don't need it. And some of y'all don't want to use the microphone. It came with the job. You know, if you want to work with horses and things, if you don't want to show a horse manure, don't take the job. We want to hear what you got to say. Stick your mouth on that microphone and use it. That's why we have microphones up there for you all to use. Use them. We appreciate it. Not waste our time being here because we're going, what do you say? What do you say? What do you say? What do you say? You know, and now we can't hear nothing. They're going, what do you say? Thank you. I'd like to hear from the village as to when they're going to address my situation. I'm getting violations. I can't do nothing about it. The village fixes what the problem is. It's the village's problem. Thank you.
You can't use that junk here. You can't use it. Oops.
Jumped on my hand.
All right, the sidewalk issue, going down there, since I've been out there, there has not ever been a sidewalk there. However, that doesn't mean that there should not be one. And there's a lot of places in the village that there are sidewalks, especially down Sauk Trail. So that's something that we should see if we can put into the budget to put a sidewalk there from, I think that's far. Is that Orion all the way back to Sauk, all the way back to Torrance Avenue. So, and then I would like to see that put there, and also there's other places as far as lighting concerns going down Sauk Trail. On the other side of 394, before we start doing the sidewalk there, we should have lighting there too. So I'm going to see how we can go about asking the county more, if we have to put it in our budget, see what it would take to put a sidewalk there, because people are actually walking, they have been walking from Torrance Avenue down Sauk Trail all the way to Jeffrey. And there needs to be a sidewalk there. Executive session is executive session. I mean,
Come off the side, they get past you, they come on, early in front of my house.
excuse me, did you all want to meet?
Okay.
The executive session, a lot of times the executive session, that we have the executive session, is kind of important. I mean, we're at the meeting, and when we have our meetings, it's business meetings. And yes, we do appreciate the residents to be here, to hear what's going on, but a lot of times that's part of trying to do business, is trying to, conduct that business when it needs to be taken care of. Today, if we had done the executive session, I think it would have been over, we've been here a lot longer than the executive session would have been. And if we had somebody here to present, they understand that when you come in to present, or when you come into a village meeting, it's what it is. It's a board meeting, it's a committee meeting, it's a business meeting, where we take care of business. And that's part of doing business. I know it's an inconvenience that you have to sit, but I just know that's just part of doing business in any village. What do you do when a person moves out of the village? I mean, is there any procedure? We have people that walk away. People walk away from their homes all the time. There's nothing in place to stop that. If a person wants to pick up, move out of the village and keep going, I don't know of any place that has anything in place to stop that person or to make sure that person notifies. But more times than not, if they move like that, they're not trying to notify anybody that they're leaving, they're just leaving. It's unfortunate that happened. It's a good thing we're not paying for the water, but that does happen. That could have been a break. It could have been because the temperature was cold and then it got warm. That's when you get most of the water main breaks when the temperature rises. Because the frozen part that was broken and stalled out, now you get a water flowing. How can you stop? I have no idea. I don't even know what you can put in place to have a person to notify the village when they're leaving. If you have some ideas on that, please let me know after the meeting. I would more than very happy to try to go about trying to do that, because right now there's people leaving owing us water bills, there's people leaving owing the landlord's rent. I mean, that's what people move out for. If they're going to be in the village and be up, as they say, upstanding, they wouldn't just leave like that. So that's an ongoing in life, not just inside. That's not something brand new to Sauk Village. Street signs. There are street signs out there. Some of them probably need to be updated and maybe need to be added and adhered to. Speeding, stop signs. But you have a lot of them throughout the village. It's just like anything else. What stops you from going through a stop sign? A ticket or going to jail or revoke your license. That's what stops you from going through those things. So, I mean, if a person really doesn't care, they go through, they get caught, they gotta pay. If they don't get caught, they keep going through till they get caught. So, I mean, it is an ongoing problem in any municipality, any city in the world. People run through stop signs and they speed through the neighborhood. I've noticed that we have more of a presence of officers out in the afternoons and in the evenings. I've seen it myself, but can they be everywhere? No. But hopefully that those people that are disobeying the laws, they'll get caught, get ticketed, maybe they won't do it again. And we have to get to the point where we get enough of it that it'll be out there and say, okay, you will be prosecuted, and I hope that does happen for people to stop doing it. That's the only thing that stops a person from speeding or breaking any law is the consequences. That's the only thing that stops a person from doing that. To the gentleman that talked about the house property, I don't know what damage has been done to the village. It's something that you need to come up to the village and talk to, or after the meeting's over, I'll be glad to talk to you about it. Finding out what tree, if the tree is owned by the village, then quite naturally we have to look into it. If it's not owned by the village, but you still, irregardless, if you have a car and you live in the village, you still have to buy a sticker. End result. That's all that I have. At this time, I'll ask for comments from the trustees. We'll start with Trustee Todd. Well, I change it up every now and then.
Thank you. The ordinance review committee will meet on Monday, oh, I wish it was, February 24th at 6 p.m. here in the Rotunda. And I just want to address an issue that Ms. Cass brought up. It had to do with what happened tonight where I got a message from a person on Peterson that said that there was running water out of a garage. It was coming down the driveway. So it was after 5 o'clock, so I contacted our village administrator, and he contacted the police chief, and they went over to the house, and the person thought it was abandoned. They weren't sure. They hadn't seen anybody over there in a while. So, of course, they did a wellness check to make sure that there was nobody in there. And I think what has happened is the pipe broke because there's been no heat in the house. So this was a case where the person walked away from the house and so I just wanted to address that I had received information, well, actually someone asking for help because Village Hall was already closed. So that ends my comment.
Thank you. Trustee Williams?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, the executive session at the beginning of the agenda is causing multiple problems every time it's at the beginning of the agenda. Two things. I have asked the clerk to write it down and give us exactly how you would like it stated, so when we do need to move it from one part of the agenda to the other, that we'll all have a little template so we don't have to go through it. It sets the tone for the entire meeting every time we have to try to move it. But number two, it's just unnecessary to have it at the beginning of the agenda because 9 times out of 10, we're not taking action. I've said this before. It's just easier if you place it at the end of the agenda, and then if there's a need, that we make that motion to move it to the beginning of the agenda. I did several phone calls from residents stating just what was stated here tonight. Why do we need to sit here while you go in executive session? We were in executive session for 1 hour and 45 minutes last week. Executive session is for the board. It's not for the residents. It's necessary. We actually did not go in executive session today simply because of the way the motion had to be made in a specific way. I would love to just see it in writing in other trustees' hands, but I would also love to see executive session at the end of the agenda where we move it up if we need to. Second of all, speaking of trustees in the Parks and Recreation, yes, we always have had a trustee in charge of Park and Recreation. And it always worked out very well. And the clerk should not have to be going back and forth, making sure people are checked in, checked out, that it's cleaned up. That's not our responsibility. I totally agree with that. I totally agree that we need a trustee or someone responsible for those buildings and for Parks and Recreation activities. We haven't had one, as I believe that person just stated, for over a couple of years, and it's been an inconvenience. Number one, our children are not being taken care of properly. We did have a volunteer in there that was doing what he could under the volunteer basis that he was, and on a couple of occasions, we tried to inquire as to whether or not he could be hired in a position that we actually have open for a Parks and Recreation director. And I received a lot of phone calls just before the meeting today stating that we have somebody at the community center that's been working there for the last couple of weeks, and it's not the person that's been volunteering. I don't know whether it's true or not because I haven't heard anything, but I know that the person that was there on a volunteer basis was actually providing a service for free to the village, and now I don't know who's over at the community center and what's doing it, but I think having a person on staff, other than the clerk, to handle the buildings and the park and recreation activities and buildings is probably what we do need to do. And lastly, when coming to the minutes, I am glad that the clerk has told us what we need to do to bring those 2 sets of minutes back from December 10th, and I'm hoping that we're going to do that soon. But that still doesn't address the situation that we have several sets of minutes that are outstanding from 2017, 18, and 19. And the fact that we have an OMA violation against this board for approving minutes from September that were given to us in November when there's still so many minutes that are outstanding. And the one thing that I get out of that OMA binding opinion is they're putting it at the responsibility of the board to make sure that these minutes are caught up, passed, and put on the website. So I'm just asking that we know, that we find out as soon as possible from the clerk what minutes have not been approved, what minutes have not been put on the website, when can we expect to get this done? Because we've been told as a board that that's our responsibility. And that moving forward, if you read the binding opinion, that moving forward, we need to make sure that the minutes are passed timely. So we need to know what's going to be done about the minutes that are not or have not been approved. And if they've all been approved, then we just need to know they've all been approved. I'm not going on what I know. I don't have the facts. I'm asking for the facts. What minutes, if any, are outstanding other than the ones that I know we tabled on December 10th? And that concludes my report.
Okay, after the, I'm gonna start down here. After the meeting is over with, could you get with the clerk since you want to know what minutes have been approved?
She sent me an email yesterday.
Okay, after the meeting, could you get, but you said, you just said you didn't have that. Okay, yes, you did. You said,
I haven't got a response from the clerk yet.
okay, but you said you don't have what minutes that have not been approved. I said, I'm asking you after the meeting, can you get with the clerk to find out what minutes needs to be approved? If you send an email, why didn't you say that?
Why are we arguing?
I'm not arguing, I'm asking a question.
My report is done.
You're not running anything. I'm asking you, you made a statement, trustee. Trustee, you made a statement that the minutes were not approved and you'd like to know which minutes were approved. You just said that.
And the clerk just said I sent her an email, and I have not.
But you didn't say that you got an email. But you just said you didn't get it. You didn't say you got an email, trustee. Why you make it seem like somebody hasn't done anything? I know you're not, and that's the way you are, trustee.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I know trustee Todd has some comments for me. I still waiting on the comments from the rest of the trustees. You can send those back because it has been a while now. No, I get it, but I would like to discuss it in 2 weeks from today because I mean it's been a while. Yeah, so if we could just get those submissions as possible, that way we can hopefully discuss it 2 weeks and then hopefully pass it at the following board meeting. But that's all I have for now.
Thank you. Trustee Bell?
Yeah, due to an unseen circumstance with my computer at home, I had to cancel my meeting for tomorrow and move it to next Tuesday, my committee meeting, 11 a.m. at the fire station. And that will conclude my report.
Trustee Giselle?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm looking to have a housing committee meeting next Wednesday on the 26th at 7 o'clock in the boardroom. I did have one of the committee members resign, so I am looking for any other member that would be interested in sitting on the housing committee. If you want to shoot me a letter or email, that would be great. In response to Ms. Hopkins, I know that our community development director has been having talk with Tanya's, and she is currently working with the, I think it was Habitat for Humanity, and they're working on some vacant houses. I think they wanted to start at Carroll, I believe she reported. So she's working on that. Anytime you want to come to my meetings, please feel free. I'm always looking for ideas, and I'm sorry I hadn't had a meeting last month due to my work schedule, and then I became ill for a couple weeks, so I'm looking to have a meeting next week. That concludes my report.
Trustee Brewer?
No report.
Just have a couple of things. I resent the fact that someone says the children not being taken care of properly. That is totally wrong. That is wrong. And I
Sorry,
don't,
Mr. Mayor, I didn't hear what you said.
I do not like the fact that someone said that the children in the community center are not being taken care of properly. That is wrong. The children, the young adults and teenagers that are over there are. That's number one. To make that statement is, you need to come over there and look at it and see what's going on, because that's a statement that I take personally, because that is not true. The second thing that I have to say Second thing I know you don't want to hear, but second thing I have to say is the person that's over there now has not been there for 2 weeks. They've been there since Saturday. They're in a capacity of volunteering because they're trying to start some programs here in the village that we haven't had for quite a while. They're trying to start a baseball program. They're trying to start a autism program for people that are autistic, to bring them in to have programs for them. They're trying to start an after-school program. This particular person did this in Fort Heights at one time, and he wants to now bring some things over here in the village. We haven't even talked money. He had his background check. He went and talked to the chief. He's doing it voluntarily right now until we can see what he can bring, what type of participation he's going to have, and then we can move to the next phase of probably giving something to this person. And when that happens, I will bring that to the board to let them know that this is what's going on. But right now, it's all volunteer work, all everything trying to get in place, trying to put pieces together. It's not costing us anything other than to have him be at the gym. And he's going to be open in the gym every day. And even on the weekends, I think he said Saturday. So they were over there Saturday, but they have not been there for 2 weeks. They've only been there since Saturday, so today's Tuesday. That's when they started over there. So I'm one of the persons, as I stated before, that's going to do more than just watch the kids play basketball. We need programs that do not just have to be basketball all the time. He wants to include volleyball. He wants to include the younger kids. The kids are in Wagner and Strasburg, not just junior high and high school. So as things go on, and as I get more updates, I will update and inform the board what's going on right now. But right now, it's just in a voluntary mode. He's trying to get people to subscribe to what he's trying to do. And he has new rules and regulations when it comes to go into that gym. You do not bring book bags or any other outside. You bring your gym shoes and your coat and your hat, and that's it. So he's implementing some new rules over there, and I think it's going to be a real great asset to the village. And once you get a chance to talk to him after he gets everything in place, then I will bring him to the board, and then he'll probably come to the board about the programs and what naturally the programs have to be funded by the village if we go in that particular route. That being said, I'll ask a motion to adjourn. Second. Have a second? Do we have a second? Okay, we'll move by that side of the table.